Hassan Nasrallah's funeral this Sunday could prove to be a key inflection point for Lebanon and the broader Levant. Will it signal the beginning of an Iranian campaign to undermine an emerging American order? Or will the nascent regime in Beirut find its footing and expand state sovereignty at Iran's expense? Hundreds of thousands will gather in the southern suburbs of Beirut for what is expected to be a significant show of force, not only for the Lebanese militant group, but also for its sponsors in Iran and for its allies in Iraq and Yemen. While this is not only a Lebanese affair, Nasrallah's funeral will be closely watched for its political significance beyond Lebanon's borders, including in next-door Israel. Before a massive Israeli airstrike on a Beirut bunker last September killed him, Hassan Nasrallah was Hezbollah's most iconic and charismatic leader. He was by far the most dominant Lebanese political figure, wielding a veto over the Lebanese state and its fragile institutions for more than 2 decades. Under his leadership, Lebanon's Shia community was ascendant, and Hezbollah became a regional proxy force for Iran, shaping the politics of Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Nasrallah inspired the masses like few others could. He built Hezbollah into a formidable military force on Israel's northern doorstep. His killing, along with Hezbollah's stinging defeat by Israel and the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, has left Iran's regional axis in disarray. It has raised hopes that Beirut can finally rid itself of Iranian domination and return to the Arab fold. Domestically, the funeral comes amid an increasingly tense relationship between Hezbollah's base in the Shia community and the emerging order, backed by the West and key Arab states such as Saudi Arabia. The recent election of Lebanese army commander Joseph Aoun and appointment of Nawaf Salam as prime minister had long been opposed by Hezbollah. The government's decision to curtail Hezbollah's control over Beirut airport and to ban Iranian carriers, which are suspected of ferrying money to the group, recently prompted clashes between Hezbollah supporters and the Lebanese army. Hezbollah is not only feeling the pinch and the pressure in Beirut, but also on Lebanon's southern and northern borders. This week, Israel stopped short of completing its withdrawal from southern Lebanon as obligated by the US-brokered ceasefire that ended the war. Israel argues that its continued occupation of 5 strategic hilltops is necessary for the security of its border communities. And in the north, the Provisional Syrian government in Damascus recently initiated military operations against Hezbollah's smuggling routes, its logistical and financial lifeline to Iran. So can Hezbollah be sidelined? Well, a lot depends on what the Trump administration does next. As it attempts to negotiate new understandings with Tehran in the months ahead, Washington must guard against Iranian attempts to destabilize the emerging order in Beirut, but also in Damascus, through a campaign of violence and targeted assassinations. There is significant key man risk in both countries, and Tehran has a history of carrying high-profile assassinations. Washington must continue its conditional support for the legitimate forces of the Lebanese state, despite its instinct to curtail foreign funding and assistance programs. This will be crucial, not only for Lebanon's internal stability, but for the full implementation of Lebanon's ceasefire with Israel. The U.S. should also leverage financial support from Arab countries to fund the mammoth reconstruction task required to rebuild the country. This also must be conditional on Lebanon's acceptance of much-needed reforms. And finally, the U.S. must insist that all foreign aid is coordinated with the legitimate state institutions, making sure that illicit Iranian funding through Beirut Airport or financial foundations like Hezbollah's Qabd al-Hassan are curtailed. The Lebanese government, not Hezbollah, should be the focal point in reconstruction. Politically, Washington must beware of overreach in Lebanon. President Trump's eagerness to expand the Abrahamic Accords by pushing Arab countries to normalize with Israel could backfire in a fragile country like Lebanon. Already some voices in Washington and Beirut are hoping to seize on Iran and Hezbollah's weakness to clinch a peace deal between the two countries. That currently remains unrealistic and unsustainable due to Lebanon's internal fragility. Instead, Washington should focus on the full implementation of the current ceasefire, including the continued dismantlement of Hezbollah's military infrastructure and the full withdrawal of Israel from southern Lebanon. Israel's concern and continued occupation of strategic hilltops can be addressed through the deployment of UN and other forces in these sensitive locations. Ultimately, a return to a permanent armistice agreement between Israel and Lebanon is more realistic and more sustainable. It would be a significant foreign policy win for President Trump, one that paves the way towards his broader ambition of unlocking normalization between Israel and much more consequential Arab states.